Hello beautiful and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to this video where we are going to talk about my 10 most used eyeshadow palettes in my collection. I got a question when I did if I could only keep 10 palettes in my collection. I was basically showing you palettes that I would, if I could only keep 10 palettes, which palette would I need to be able to create all the looks that I love? And someone asked me, why don't you instead do a video about your 10 favorite palettes? And I can't do that. I can't do that. There are so many palettes in my collection that I have a nostalgic, I don't maybe even use them, but they're a collab with a friend or I got them as a gift. I can't say my 10 favorite palettes, but I can tell you which 10 palettes I have used the most since I reviewed them. And that's what this video is going to be about. And if you have not been here before, if this is your first video on my channel, hello, my name is Angie. I am such a lover of beauty and makeup. Just love everything beauty and makeup related, especially eyeshadow and especially colorful things. So there's going to be quite a few colorful palettes in this video. And if you want to see some more makeup content on your timeline, don't forget to subscribe because I upload 5 videos a week. So in this video, I'm going to show you 10 palettes that are the most used palettes in my collection. Things that I have used the most since I reviewed them. Palettes that I bring traveling, palettes that I use when I'm not doing YouTube videos. I'm just doing my makeup outside of YouTube because trust me, it happens. And I'm not going to be mentioning palettes that are discontinued because let's be honest, I do have a couple of palettes that I of course have been using the most, but they're not available anymore. Like the Colourpop Good Sport or this one. Because I know people are going to ask why didn't you include the Club Nebula? Club Nebula is the palette that I did in collaboration with Kaleidos Makeup. Of course, this is my palette that I've used the most in my collection. I can't even begin to explain how much I used this when we were testing out formulas and testing out stuff. So of course that palette is well used, and not only this one, the samples that I had, but I'm not going to be including palettes that are not available anymore. I'm going to be talking about 10 palettes that I have used the most since I reviewed them that are still available. I'm going to tell you, and maybe even tell myself, how come? How come these are the palettes that I've reached for the most? Let's start with this one. This is the Viseart Dark Edit palette. And I know exactly why this is the most used one, because when I got this one has followed me around to almost every travel destination since I bought this. And when I say travel destination, I don't mean just exotic trips like going across the sea, going to a different country. I mean going just over the weekend, not the past 6 months, but there was a period of time when this palette was a palette I reached for all the time, because this have the most amazing range of deepening up shades and a lot of colorful options, and it also has a row of neutrals, which is just enough neutrals for me. I don't need more neutrals than this. This is perfectly fine. And it has 4 shimmers on the bottom in case I just want to use this. I love this palette, and I've reached for this palette not necessarily to use by itself, but this is the companion palette of companion palettes when it comes to deepening up shades when you want to travel light. So this palette has been used a lot. And before that palette, this was a palette that I reached for so much. This is a Dose of Colors Blushing Berries. This one is a little bit older. Oh, I still have my brush in here. Maybe I should bring this out and actually use it because that brush is not bad. This is what this one looks like. This is still available, but in another packaging. I know they updated the packaging. I love the Dose of Colors eyeshadow formula. I know not everyone does, but I think it's a beautiful formula. This one goes from light to a black. It goes dark, and it has this beautiful matte red that's wonderful, and this peachy pink, and then it's 2 browns, one mid-tone and one dark. This is the perfect companion palette, and also this one has come traveling with me a lot, especially if I'm bringing, sometimes I'll bring just something small, and then this one, because I know that I can deepen up with this one. It has a matte black, and I also know that I can make something a bit more bright and deep and colorful with this red. So this palette has been a great companion palette as well, and either one of these have come traveling with me a lot. Let's actually talk about the next travel palette, because this is a palette that I have traveled with a lot. This is a palette that when I really traveled light, you know, when you only go for 2 nights and you don't even want to pack a bag, you just want to pack a backpack. This has been a palette that I brought more than twice, maybe 3-4 times. I brought this one especially for conferences. I brought this one for conferences a lot when I was still working my office job, because this one has 2 neutrals and 4 more poppy shades, and this one works as a highlighter for me, and these 2 works as blushes for me. So I didn't even have to pack that. Only this palette worked for blush, highlighter, eyeshadows for me and for my skin tone. Did I even say that this is the Nabla Cutie palette in Coral? I love this palette, and I have gone on and on and on about this palette. I still think that this is a beautiful palette. I think it's a wonderful palette, and if you are my skin tone and you like a pinky cheek, this is a palette that will work all together. I'm like a light medium. It's just a wonderful palette, and I've used this quite a lot, and there's a reason why I have been raving about this palette so much, and it's because I've used it so much. I actually think that this is probably like, when I'm talking like most used palettes in my collection, I think this is top 3. If we're not counting Club Nebula, I think out of the 10 that I'm mentioning, that Coral palette, it's probably top 3. And if we're gonna say one of the other ones that's top 3, it's gonna have to be this one, the Blue Moon. I think that this is a little bit surprising. I don't think a lot of people will pull out an all blue eyeshadow palette and say it's their most used palette, but I love this palette. And I did mention this palette in the if I could only keep 10 palettes, I did mention this one because the tones of these blues are the tones that I like. So many times people are pointing to shades that I think are aqua or mint or teal or turquoise or even green, and they're like, it's a blue. I'm like, where? This is blue. This is blue. The only other ones you're showing me, they're other things. This is blue, and this is a beautiful palette. I really enjoyed this one. I think the shadows blend and build beautifully, and I have used this so much. And every time that I feel like, oh, I really want to have blue eyeshadow, which I'm gonna be honest, happens quite a lot. Before maybe I had this one, but these two together are beautiful as well. I reach for this one because I think it's such a wonderful palette. Such a shame that a lot of people are like not afraid, that's the wrong term, they're not afraid of colorful eyeshadow, but they do like steer away from it because they think it's a little bit scary. But a blue smoky eye will forever be my comfort zone, and the Blue Moon is just a wonderful palette. Every time people ask me, I want to try blue eyeshadow, what should I go for? I always recommend this one, and I have people asking me, what did they ask me? If I can choose between the High Tide and another palette I'm going to mention here, the Blueberry Muffin, I actually answer, you know what, I'd pick this one. If it's blue you're after, if you're going for blue, go for the Blue Moon. If you want a mix of blues and neutrals, this one. This, listen. I said, and I stand by it, I said that this was the best palette of 2020. BH Cosmetics Blueberry Muffin, I think, is the best palette of 2020. I tried almost 100 palettes in 2020. This was on top. This is excellent quality, and I think this is a genius mix of neutrals and blues because it is made in a way that it doesn't seem misplaced. You know, sometimes those like orangey brown warm neutral palettes, and then it's a pop of a matte blue. Where are you putting that matte blue? What are you gonna blend it out with? What are you gonna do with that matte blue? Like, it makes no sense. They're just popping it in to make it look like they did like something fun and exciting. But what they really did is give you a shade that doesn't mix or match with any of the other shades in the palette. This palette makes sense because these two are cool tone browns, one being a bit more of a plum, one being a bit more of a brown, and then you also have a gray matte here, and you have three matte blues and a matte gray that you could blend these two together if you don't want to do like an all blue crease. And then you have a couple of like shimmery blues, and you have like some neutral like shimmers if you want to mix and match with that. It's just a genius color scheme to bridge the gap for making blue less scary. This is a blue eyeshadow palette for beginners. Not beginners like you don't know what you're doing, but beginners of dipping your toes into wearing blue eyeshadow. If you want to go all in blue, go the Blue Moon. But I have worn this eyeshadow palette so many times. I just really enjoy this palette. There's a reason why I said this was a favorite, and it's because it's a favorite. I think it's beautiful. Another palette that I've used so many times outside of YouTube, and last time I was in Stockholm. I was in Stockholm with my best friend. We were celebrating her birthday. I actually, I got us a hotel room, just the two of us, and we basically just spent the entire weekend at the hotel and just had hotel breakfast. Just basically what we did this weekend at her place, just, you know, hanging out, catching up with your friend. It was so lovely, and I brought this palette, the Orange You Glad by Colourpop. This is a beautiful palette. This palette makes me happy This palette makes me happy. The last time I used this palette, I actually took this shade, this orange here, all over my lid, into my crease, mascara, done. That was the look. That was the look. Love this palette, love the quality, love the mix of peachy oranges and like yellowy oranges and this like almost brown, very orangey brown. And then there is a metallic and there is a pressed glitter here. But I will say this pressed glitter is beautiful. If you don't like pressed glitters, don't use it, or like get rid of this one and put another one of the, because these are magnetic. If you have more like 9-pan palettes like this from Colourpop, you can put another shade in here, just poke it out and put something else in. But the quality of these are beautiful. And this matte like pastelly, it's like a pastelly orangey peach. It's so pigmented that you can use this as an inner corner highlight or you can use this as a lid color, and it's just so pretty. I've used this palette so much since I reviewed it, and I mean this palette is pretty old, but I mean I brought it to traveling this year. It shows that I'm still loving this palette. I think it's so beautiful. Okay, let's get into Juvia's Place. I love Juvia's Place eyeshadows, and it's one of those brands that I reach for so much outside of YouTube. And one of my favorites, and I mentioned this before, is the Festival palette. This red Izava is one of my favorite red matte eyeshadows in my collection. I also love this Yuli one, and I love the mix of these two together. I actually did that look in, oh god, that was years ago. Is that 3 years ago? That I did a 1 palette 3 looks with this one. Oh, love those looks. And I did a look with just these two. This one in the crease and a half cut crease with this white metallic. Fire. And I still do that look from time to time because I love the contrast. I love how it looks. Wonderful red matte. You have a mustard matte, a peach matte, a bright pink matte, and this like almost neon coral, and then 3 shimmers on the bottom. This is a beautiful palette. You can make it super poppy or you can make it slightly more fiery neutral. Love the quality, love this palette. I've used it quite a lot, and I still reach for it because I think it's just such a fun palette. And I think this is my most used Juvia's Place palette. I love this one. I love this one even more, and this one I've used so much, which, I mean, it does look a little bit janky. I don't know if you can see it. It has 3 pretty dark mattes on the bottom that you can build up and deepen up and get really pigmented. It is this dark brown, it is this almost rust dark orange, and this beautiful super dark fuchsia. It's such a dark fuchsia that it looks red in the pan, but you can sheer it out to more of a pinky. It's stunning, and you can really build it up. It's beautiful. And then 6 metallics. Some of these are duochromes. These 6 metallics are the best metallics that Juvia's Place have ever done. This palette is, I don't know if you can see here, but things that I reach for when I really want to, like, I don't know, blues and like reds and like pinky reds. Love that. I love greens, I love yellows, I love all of that, but reds, blues, and like pinky reds, I love that. This is like an iridescent, like minty sea foam. These two together with one of these in the crease, so pretty. And this is like an iridescent, one of those like vanilla gold, super metallic, this like gold peach, beautiful. This is duochrome burgundy gold, and then you have this bronze metallic here if you just want to do a bronze look, if you don't want to go colorful. This palette is fire. Every time I use this palette, I love my look. Every time I use that palette, I love my look. Last 2 palettes on Natasha Denona. I actually reached for Natasha Denona quite a lot outside of YouTube, and I do mention this quite a lot, but I don't know. I think I have 3 looks on my channel with this love palette. I love this color scheme. Again, do you see that? The pinky red. Pink red combo is, after a blue smoky eye, a pink red combo or a pink peach combo is my comfort zone. Like, it's something that I just love wearing. And this like pastel pink matte here is so beautiful with the red in the crease and like an all matte look with like pink and red. I love it so much. I also love that there's a purple edition. I love this dark. This is one of her cream to matte. These like duochromes that are here in the middle here, it's just a stunning palette. I think this palette is one of the best, most cohesive color schemes she has done. It's a perfect mix of matte versus metallic shimmers. I love that there's different kinds of metallic shimmers. There is like more like glittery ones. There is one like satin dark with like goldy specks. There's a couple of duochromes, and it goes perfectly between very light and very dark. I just love this color scheme. Red, pink, peach, little neutral, and then the pop of like silver and purple. Beautiful palette. I've used this quite a lot. I know this is marketed as limited edition, but with Natasha Denona, that usually means that there are hanging around for a bit. I think she says that with palettes, that she's not gonna like, it's not gonna be like Melt Cosmetics. Like they're not gonna release and then the next day they're gone and you're never seeing them again. That's not what she means when she does limited edition. I think it just means that don't be surprised if one day they're gone. I think that's how it is, because I'm pretty sure that this one, the Metropolis, is also marketed as limited edition. I would say that out of these palettes, which are my 3 most used palettes, is that surprising? I don't know. These are probably my most, like my 3 most used palettes. This is the Metropolis palette. I bought this. I said I wasn't gonna buy this, and I bought it, and I love this. This is new. It has neutral and a half green, blue, red palette because it has like a red metallic. It also has, what I really like about this is that it's warm and grungy but still colorful. Like grungy greens. It has several greens. It has a couple of blues. Like that's like 3 blues, and then this like bluish green. This is like a dark foresty green blue. Like you can see both shades in there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 greens at least. And then there is this like yellow, mustard yellow matte, and then there are like bronzes and golds and neutrals and oranges, like stuff that people love, and me too sometimes. Like if I want neutrals, I would definitely reach for this, but it's something so appealing about this palette. But this shouldn't be like, normally when I like buy makeup, I don't buy things that are this neutral. I don't buy things that are this big, and I don't buy things that are like, I don't know, this many like neutral shimmers. But this formula is fire, and the greens and the blues in this palette I've reached for so much. Like I wore the greens in this palette on my wedding day. I wore the greens in this palette on my wedding day. I just think this is a fire palette, and I've used it quite a lot, and I think that palette finally, it's just a nail in the coffin that I actually do like when a palette has a couple of neutrals, because I don't hate neutrals. I'm just more drawn to colors, but I like having some neutrals in my palettes because sometimes I like mixing and matching with neutrals. Even though I like a bright color scheme, I also really love like the grungy, like neutral leaning colors. Like I love a grungy green, I love it like a more muted blue, I love it like a red together with peaches. I don't need it to be neon, but I just prefer it to not be an all brown. Does this make sense? And also that palette has a lot of my favorite Natasha Denona formulas, which is the cream to powder. I know not everybody loves those, but I think they're absolutely stunning. It is a beautiful formula. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite cream, like cream shadow formula that I've ever tried. I think it's beautiful. And yeah, those are my 10 most used palettes. I mean, I have a really big eyeshadow palette collection. And I will be honest, some palettes I've never used since I reviewed them. And it's not because they're bad, it's because for one reason or another, they weren't the one I picked when I'm doing makeup outside of YouTube, or they didn't fit exactly what I wanted when I was traveling, or maybe they weren't as versatile together with other palettes as I would want them to. It doesn't mean they're bad palettes. And when I'm reviewing makeup, it's not me telling you that you need as much makeup as I have. Like, this is what I do for a living. I review a lot of makeup to help you pick out the few things that you would like to add to your collection. Don't buy all the makeup I'm buying. Listen, nobody needs this much makeup. I'm just happy to be here showing you which things are worth picking up and which things are not. And this was also this helped me a bit picking out these things, because I realized, like, yeah, I do love my blues and I do love my reds together with pinks and together with peaches. I do love that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for giving me the suggestion to spark the idea for this kind of a video idea. If you do something similar like this, if you're a YouTuber, please do tag me. I would love to see your pics. And I think that was everything for this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!